Hey, 8th grade science, this is Mr. Aiden, and we are going to be talking about chemical energy and ATP today. And so let's get to it. The cells of all organisms, whether you're algae or whales or human, all organisms in this entire world, they need something in order to make all their cellular processes go along. And we need a thing called chemical energy. Chemical energy in order to make all of our processes go along. Well, guess what? Plants, where do they get their chemical energy from? Well, they get their energy from mainly the sun, from ultraviolet light. And that sun helps with what's called photosynthesis to produce sugars. And those sugars, the energy from those sugars, so they have ultraviolet light, that solar radiation, and that produces chemical energy. And in sugars, plants can use those sugars to produce all of their chemical processes. And well, guess what? Animals consume plants. And when animals consume plants, they consume those sugars. Those sugars help to give them the chemical energy they need for all their cellular processes. And so when we eat plants or we eat animals, guess what we do? We're consuming all of that energy that first came from the sun. And so different kinds of foods, all of your energy comes from foods, but not directly. Carbohydrates, what we call carbohydrates, carbs, and lipids are the most important sources of energy in the foods you eat. And so the energy your body uses comes from the overall energy that's released. Now keep in mind, the energy that's released after chemical bonds are broken. So breaking chemical bonds doesn't release energy, it absorbs energy. It takes energy in order to break bonds. Remember, a lot of biologists think that breaking bonds releases energy. No, 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 no. Breaking bonds needs energy. You need energy, positive energy, to break any bonds. But remember, there's also chemical bonds being formed. And what happens when we form new bonds? It releases energy. It releases energy. It's negative energy. So if you look down here, we have this CH4 molecule, we have O2 molecules, and guess what we have to do? We have to break every single one of these bonds. How do we break every single one of these bonds? We need to put in energy. Okay, it's kind of like you need to make money so that your bank account needs to go positive. So you can see all of these bonds are being broken, and now I have individual atoms at a high potential energy. And now guess what happens after that is we are forming new bonds. And as we form new bonds, it is going to be negative or release energy. And so in the chemical processes in your body, the negative is going to be greater than the positive, which means at the end of the day, your body is going to, that breaking down those sugars will release energy because we're forming, the energy to form your bonds is greater than the energy to absorb your bonds. And so all your cells use chemical energy carried by an amazing molecule, and this molecule's name is ATP. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. We're going to call it ATP though, adenosine triphosphate. And ATP is a molecule, a high energy molecule, that transfers energy from the breakdown of food molecules to your cell processes. I like to think of ATP as a wallet, and that ATP can hold a lot of energy. And so it is a high energy molecule, and it's holding all of that money in that wallet. Well, what happens here is ATP, which is our high energy chemical potential energy molecule, will convert into ADP. Adenosine triphosphate converts into adenosine diphosphate, a molecule at a very low chemical potential energy. And you can see the big difference is the adenosine diphosphate does not have this third phosphate. And this is where, if you think with me, this is where biologists think wrongly. A lot of biologists and biochemists will say, we're going to break this bond right here, and so when it breaks the bond, it releases energy. No. We are breaking bonds, but it's much more complicated than that. We are going from a high chemical potential energy, so ATP is when we have all of that money in there, and ADP is when we don't have any money in there. That money has been released. And yes, a bond has been broken, but there is also things being formed as well. And so you can see how in the interconversion of ADP to ATP, ADP right here, we need energy coming in to form ATP. But if we have ATP, in order to, when we make ADP, energy is being released. Now the amazing thing is this, different foods have different amounts of what we call calories, which means that is a measurement of energy. Therefore, different foods also provide different amounts of ATP. We know some foods give us a lot of energy, right? Some foods don't give us a whole lot of energy. And some foods give us energy that's really quick, not very efficient. And some foods give us long-term energy sources. So let's take a look at these. The first one is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates give us energy. These are our sugars and our starches. But they're not stored in large amounts in the body. They're the quick use, but they are the most common. Miss Dale likes to say Mr. Aiden lives on carbohydrates, which means I like these really common, small, very quick amounts of energy sources because glucose only gives about 36 molecules of ATP. But something like lipids, fats store the most amount of energy in the body. About 80% of the energy in your body comes from lipids. And a single triglyceride molecule can yield about 146 molecules of ATP. This is your long-term energy source here. And last but not least, we have our proteins. Proteins store about the same amount of energy as carbohydrates, but they're way less likely to be broken down since amino acids are needed to build new proteins. So you can see proteins, yes, they have about the same amount of energy as carbohydrates, but some of that energy is going into forming new proteins rather than the energy supplied to your body. And so I hope this helped. This was 8th grade science, chemical energy and ATP. Make sure you go to MrAiden.com and make sure you do the chemical energy and ATP self-assessment. I'll talk to you at another time. See you on another video. See you guys.